you struggling with social media growth? Lazarchik is breaking down the biggest mistakes, the smartest strategies, and how to actually get results. You won't want to miss it. Well, welcome to another fantastic episode of Purpose-Driven Progress. I'm your host, Jacob Hicks, as always. And today, you guys, I am stoked with a capital ST, stoked, ready for our guest today. We've got Lazarchik, I think,
yes,
if I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
And she is a social media guru. I tell you what, she's going to have a ton of knowledge, a ton of gold. So make sure you guys have your pen and paper ready to go. There's going to be a lot of really good stuff for you. So Alex, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. So tell me, or let's get some of the background stuff. So did you just kind of wake up one day and decide, hey, social media is going to be kind of my thing forever? Or, I mean, what kind of brought you to the social media world?
Yeah, no, I didn't even know that this was a career whenever I started into it.
Yep.
I stumbled into social media, like my very first encounter. I feel like most of our generation was the YouTube gen. So
yes,
I had an older brother, and he, would show me all the OGs like Jenna Marbles and Smosh and stuff. So we would always watch these old videos. And whenever I was in my teenage years, I would do beauty videos on YouTube sometimes. And not my niche at all, by the way, but that was the thing. The beauty gurus were the thing. So when I was trying to decide what I wanted to go for college, my dad was like, well, maybe you should try marketing or PR because you really like that creative aspect. You're good at talking to people. And I was like, yeah, that sounds great. So I went for marketing. And then my sophomore year, I got recruited to be a part of our business school's digital marketing team. And during my time there, we worked with a social media agency local. So I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and they were local there. So we started working together, and that led into my first internship, first job. And I honestly just really loved it. I feel like it was creative. It was fun, something different every day. That was important to me, was to have something different every day because I don't want to get bored with what I'm doing.
Yes.
So yeah, it just kind of stuck, and that's where we started.
I love it. Well, and I'll tell you, speaking for me personally, I mean, I do my best with social media, but it's really, it's not my area of expertise. And I'm really curious. So you said you've been doing it for 7 or 8 years now or something, right?
Over 5. Yeah, probably 5. Okay. If you count sophomore year, truly from sophomore year to now, about 7 years. Yeah.
Okay. So, and I know that I feel like every social media platform is kind of its own beast, right? But overall, in broad strokes, how have things changed, since you first started to today?
Oh my gosh, so much. I feel like when I first started, it was Facebook and Instagram, and it was all static images. And there was YouTube, but YouTube was still really just being utilized, I think, for the bigger creators or people just having fun. It was silly. It wasn't really what it is now. And now, I mean, there's video content, even on Instagram. You have to prioritize Reels. That's even what they're pushing now. It's not even about photos anymore. TikTok, and each platform, like you said, is just its own beast in the way that you can't really get away with just throwing a couple quick posts up and calling it a day. There's so much more that goes into it, even beyond posting. And it's so important that you're even spending time on the platforms, you're engaging. And there's even multiple ways to post on each platform. So it sort of went from this 2 platforms, static images, you're good to go, to now each platform needs its own user manual to be able to navigate it.
Yeah, 100%. So I guess, can you kind of break it down for us? If I'm on Facebook and Instagram, for example, and I'm trying to post professionally, I'm hey, I want to post about, X, Y, and Z. What should I be thinking about? And what should I be focusing on? What should I be doing differently from platform to platform?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing when you're deciding, even in general, what platforms to be on is, where is your target audience? And I think a lot of people just pick a platform because they're like, oh, everyone's on Instagram, or everyone's on TikTok, or everyone's on Facebook. And it's that's not necessarily true. So if you find and sit down and actually start strategizing, you're okay, my target audience is whatever it is, then you can pick the platform that they're on. And then what I always recommend is only start with like maybe 1, 2, if you really want to get crazy, 3, but I would probably stick with 2 when you're starting
Mm,
and not stretch yourself so thin or you're going to burn out. But also, you have to learn and understand these platforms so you can
yeah.
use them effectively. So we don't want to be posting the same content on both platforms because they're different and your
Hmm.
audience is different. But also, you have to give people a reason to want to follow you on multiple channels. So if you're posting the same thing across channels, that's not super helpful. But that can be a good strategy if you're just looking to say like, hey, Instagram's my main platform, but Facebook, I just want to maintain a presence. That's fine.
Hmm.
And also what kind of content is realistic for you? Like, are you somebody that's not comfortable showing up on video? Maybe those video platforms aren't the best start for you, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You can get used to it, but it's really important to start with where's your target audience? What kind of content is like realistic and doable for me to create so that you can
Hmm.
start to get in a flow and then start to expand?
Yeah. I love that. I mean, that's true. I mean, social media and other stuff too. I mean, if you just start small and what you can maintain consistency with, I feel like is really the key here. So I guess my next question, this might be, I don't know, kind of double edged. I feel like everybody asks this all the time, but I mean, how much should we be posting on our social media if we're like trying to maintain like a professional presence and gain followers and all that stuff?
Yeah. So Um, of course, it's different on each platform,
Hmm.
but I think what's important is making sure that even if you can't post frequently, you're posting consistently.
Mm,
So let's say once a week is like the most doable for you.
yeah.
Let your followers know, like, hey, I'm gonna be here every Monday. That's when I'm gonna be here. So they know, like, okay, I can come back here every Monday, and this person is going to have content for me. I think realistically, if you want to grow, you're probably going to need to be doing at least 3 posts a week, whichever
Okay.
platform you're on, because that's going to keep the algorithm knowing you're active, you're growing, you're posting. It's going to give your posts more chances to reach new people. And
Yeah.
if you're not posting frequently, that traction's just not going to happen. So realistically 3, but if that's not doable for you, that's fine. You can still show up in other ways by
Mm,
being consistent and communicating to your audience when they can expect to see you.
yeah. 100%. Well, it's like consistency is the key. So, you mentioned earlier that we need to not only be posting, right, but we need to be on there like ourselves. We need to be engaging with other people's stuff and commenting, liking, sharing, whatever. So, what's kind of your recommendation with that? I mean, how much should I be commenting on stuff, or like, what does that look like?
I think that it's realistic to try to do it, like, of course, we wouldn't wanna say every day, but I think
Mm,
taking breaks is really, really important, especially with social media. You'll get
mm,
burnout like that. So, if
yeah.
you can take time, maybe at least Monday through Friday, even like 10 minutes, and just make sure that when you're doing your daily scroll, if you see other people doing something, don't just like it, like, actually comment on it, but
Yep.
then try your best to also do comments that are, uh, fruitful and encourage a
Yeah.
conversation. Don't just
Yep.
say maybe like, "Love this." Like, that's nice, and it works if you're in a pinch, but if you could ask them a question or say something just a little bit more to invoke them to say something back to you, and then you keep going, and then that's gonna come back to you,
Mm,
and people are gonna start engaging with your stuff, and then that's gonna help push your content. So, yeah, I would try to set down at least a couple minutes a day until it starts to work into your daily routine, because now I don't even think about it. I'm not like, "Oh, every day for 15 minutes I have this blog." I just
yeah.
do it as a part of whenever I'm posting. And I would really recommend to maximize it. Do it either before or after you post. Don't
Mm,
post and ghost. Make sure you're engaging because that's going to get people coming to your platform. And then they're like, oh, is this a new post? And they're engaging with it. And then that's really just going to boost that traction. So
yeah.
if you're looking for like when should I be doing it? Right in proximity to before or
What
after
you're
you
posting.
post or both.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm really curious because I've done some research on my own with different things. I'm on, several platforms, as you know. But how has, in your opinion, how has TikTok in particular really kind of changed the social media scene?
Yeah. I mean, social media has changed a lot since we've gotten TikTok because
Mm,
they have shown, like, first of all, how to do short form.
mhm.
Second of all, what can happen with your algorithm being so catered and custom to you, and just no other
Yes.
platform has been able to do that. And they've also broken the boundaries from being a stereotypical kind of like posed, aesthetic, filtered to really like raw unfiltered, and so many different types of creators can grow on TikTok, whereas some other platforms you can do it if you really put your mind to it, but it's like TikTok, the barrier to entry is just like anyone can do it. So with TikTok, they've changed the game a lot in the sense of like frequency for posting, how often to post, and even how to position your brand. I mean, TikTok, I'm sure everybody's seen you have to post a crazy amount. And do you have to? Again, no, but the more you post on TikTok, they actually just release their point system. So if you go look that up on the platform, that you can read all about it. But the more you post, the more likely that you're going to grow. And
Interesting.
that's something that people, maybe creators, it's easier because you're an individual, but businesses are just not prepared for that, for the
Yeah.
amount of like time and resources, the money that goes into churning out that much content. So they've really changed the game in terms of like quantity. And also, like I said, just how you position your brand, because I think brands and creators are now seeing like, I don't have to show up as the most polished version of myself all the
Yeah.
time, and actually showing up more authentically works. And now we're seeing this rise in micro influencers, smaller creators, normal people, and people are wanting more of that. And I really don't think that would have happened without TikTok, because people talk all the time about how they're intimidated by Instagram because it is so polished and
Yeah.
aesthetic. And now you're starting to see those types of creators even growing on Instagram. So, yeah, I think TikTok is just really influential overall
Yeah.
amongst all of the platforms.
Listen, I'm a huge fan. Like I enjoy TikTok. I'm like just personally anyway, but
Yeah.
I think you really hit the nail on the head where like the algorithm has really changed. And I feel like, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like Facebook and Instagram, some of these other platforms are kind of, not copying, but influenced, like you said, by the way that TikTok is running. Because as people know, on TikTok, if you're in a business mood and you're thinking about business stuff and you're watching, short little, business clips, and then that's what you're going to get more of. But if you're in
Yeah.
music, you want to do music stuff, and you're going to get more of that. And I feel like that, I mean, that can change day to day, right?
Yeah. I mean, it can be instantaneous. Like if you interact with two or three things you look up on cooking, then your whole algorithm turns into cooking. It's just like
Yes.
crazy. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, Facebook has Reels now, YouTube has YouTube Shorts, Instagram has Instagram Reels. And none of that would have happened if TikTok didn't start
Yeah.
paving the way for that.
Yeah. So I love that. Well, I want to switch gears here a little bit because we've talked about, like the different platforms and things,
Yeah.
but you've mentioned that you kind of got in the social media world, you've got kind of a large amount of experience in a variety of different roles. So, like, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned from, kind of like, some freelancing, some corporate, and some of your own stuff too, right? So, like, what are some of the big lessons that you've learned, and how has that shaped your strategy overall?
Yeah. So from doing freelancing, I think you learn a lot about how to count on yourself, because
Yeah.
you don't have, I mean, anybody that's started a business, you're most of the time you're on your own. So
Yep.
like how you don't have somebody telling you to do things. You don't have somebody yelling at you. Like you have to be able to do that. But that also means that you have to know your worth. And I've also learned a lot of that as well. When I started doing freelancing, I would charge like $300 for like full social media management, like all
Mm.
4 platforms, marketing, everything, which is just insane. So I really, really learned that, and I can take that now into like 9 to 5 jobs as well. If I'm negotiating salary or something, it's like I know my worth. I'm not afraid to ask for that.
Yeah.
Agency life, time management. I mean,
Yes.
if you work for an agency, you know this crazy, and it is
Mm.
always busy, it's always packed, and there's not really a lot of boundaries with agency life. So
Yep.
I think that's where I started, and I think that really, really helped me in my career now, because I'm like, I have that time management skill when it comes to social media, and just the amount of time that even goes into the smallest things, and how to break up, like if you have multiple different clients you're working with, like how do you break that up? So yeah, it's a time management. And then in the corporate world, um I think I've learned a lot about how to foster healthy and professional, positive partnerships.
Yeah.
Um, I've learned how to, speak the corporate jargon. I've learned a lot of business skills, but also like what what goes into even having a partnership? And I don't think that we learn that a lot. And I think that's why maybe when I first started, or a lot of people first start, it's kind of sticky. I mean, you can get yourself into situations with people that just don't respect you, don't respect your work, and you don't really know what to do, because if you're mean or assertive, then that could hurt your business. So I
Mhm.
think really learning how to like foster a partnership like that, and even communicate whenever something is not going the way that you want, in a way that is still friendly. And also being able to communicate your expertise to people who don't understand what you do, and teach them
Yes.
without making them feel stupid. So yeah, I would say that time management, knowing my worth, and just fostering those partnerships are three things that I've learned kind of across the board with the agency life, freelancing, corporate world.
I love that. Well, I mean, that's some big stuff. So let's not gloss over it. So when it comes to like like you were just talking about like your time management, like let's start there. Like what have you done that's worked well? What have you done that hasn't worked? And like what are you doing now?
Yeah. So I feel like I've tried across the board all the different hacks, all of the
Mm.
different types of platforms that people have used. And really what's worked for me, and it's not anything innovative, but it's time blocking. That's what
Yep.
works for me. Because
Yeah.
if I don't have the time blocked off to do it, and have a time I know I'm gonna do it, then I'm scattered. I'm like, oh, well,
Mm.
this just popped up, or that popped up, or oh, I'm kind of in the mood to do this. And then I'll go all over the place and be in the middle of five things and not actually accomplish anything.
Mm-hmm.
But also it gives me a lot of relaxation, because I'm like, hey, I know that I have like this strategy I need to build out this week, but I have time on Thursday to do it because I did block that off.
Yep.
So I done that for different periods of my life early on whenever I started working, even with college.
Mm.
And I sort of got away from it because I wanted to just try other different tips and tricks. And now that's really what I do for not only my 9 to 5 job, but even in my freelancing stuff. You just
Yep.
have to make sure you're blocking off that time.
I love that. I mean, anybody that's listening to the show knows that I'm a huge fan of time blocking. I did a full episode on it. One of my favorite kind of tips, if you don't mind my sharing,
Yeah.
um, is I call it chaos time. And it's a time block in my like I do it now, like in my daily calendar, I schedule in like half an hour to 60 minutes of what I call chaos time. And that's for when like a client calls or somebody calls with like their hair on fire and you have to deal with something with like a lot of urgency. That way the rest of your day doesn't get, totally thrown out of whack. And by the end of the week, you need a whole extra day to try to get stuff done. That's one of my favorite kind of little tricks.
And is chaos time a daily thing?
It is a daily thing because it's really nice that, like, let's say, it's like Tuesday, like today, right? When we're recording this, and, if the day is going great, nobody calls with, any emergencies, right? Then you have
Mhm.
that extra half an hour or 60 minutes to do other stuff. And then my favorite kind of more advanced tip with it is if you're doing this consistently and you notice that you should track what you're doing in your chaos time. That way, if like let's say there's like one client who's maybe on the dramatic side and
Yeah,
they're calling you, 2, 3 times a week with their hair on fire, like I said, then you can know that like, oh, this person's probably going to call me this week. So you can actually schedule in that
that's
half an
really
hour or
good.
an hour for a time block for them specifically. So you don't have to, again, throw everything out of whack just because, again, this person is calling you with yet another issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good tip, because I do definitely have clients slash business partners that
Yep.
it's like a weekly thing, and it's just kind of like, oh my gosh, this is
Yes.
happening
Here we
again.
go again.
So
Yeah. It's
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
How
Listen,
is there
man.
always an emergency?
I
So
know.
that's really helpful. That reminds me when I was in high school. It's so long ago. It seems like, but one of my chemistry teachers, whenever he was giving us advice on like it was like the very beginning of the year, and it was like giving us
Yep.
advice on how to like stay on top of your work and manage your
Hmm.
workload and all that stuff. And he literally told us like, okay, so you have something due in 2 weeks, like do start this day, set this day as your due date, and always set your due date a couple days before.
Yep.
And then that day before in the due date, he called it oh shit time.
Yep. Yep.
It's when you're like, oh shit, like I forgot to do something, or I forgot to answer one of the questions on here. Or like, oh,
Hmm.
like my week, you know, fell and got hurt and went to the hospital for 2 days, and now I need that extra time.
Yeah.
And I've like lived by that now, where I literally
Yep.
do that, and I even put it, I know we're not talking about money here, but in my budget, I even
Yeah.
have like an oh shit slot.
Yep.
for like
Yep.
not an
No shit budget. I
emergency
love it.
fund, but just like something came up and I totally forgot and I need to have that extra money. So I love
Yes.
that you said that because that just really reminded me of that. And I
Well,
remember when he said it, it
so
cracked
I'm a
us
huge
up.
fan of that too. So I mean, personal finance is kind of one of my like secret passions because I think that financial
Really?
literacy will really determine like how well you are like in life in general. But all that to say that like Ramit Sethi, he's a like a finance guy who I followed his plan for a long time. He says exactly that, where you have like your emergency fund for like when like the car breaks down or something, right?
Right.
But then he also has like what he calls a stupid fund, where like, oh, you're like driving around and you got pulled over by the cops for speeding or something like just something stupid, right? Something like that. So you
Right.
just have that cash on hand ready to manage stupidity when it comes up. But
That's
anyway,
hilarious.
I digress.
Maybe I'll rename it to the stupid fund.
Okay, but switching back to social media.
Yeah.
One question I did have for you, and I don't know if there's an answer to it, I guess, but I was wondering is because every platform feels like there's like different things you should be like the post can be kind of themed the same maybe, but they need to be different content, different things, right? Their videos, pictures, whatever. So are there like some like timeless social media strategies that still work no matter the platform, or is it really just kind of each thing's its own beast?
Yeah, so I think that posting, we've already talked about this, so we won't go into it too much, but I think if
Yeah.
you're doing some consistency, obviously that's going to be
Hmm.
really helpful.
Okay.
But I also think that what you can do, this is like my number one tip I give to everybody when it comes
Mm.
to like, I don't know what to post, is
Yeah.
what is your audience's frequently asked questions? What are
Mm.
they asking you all the time? Or if they were asking you questions, what are they? Because if you're creating content on that, you're not going to lose because you're
Mm.
providing value no matter what.
Yep.
And depending on the platform, you can turn that into a video or a carousel or a graphic or whatever it is. So for me, I always think like, okay, like what I can use my metrics now on social because I've grown a little bit of a following. But if you have nobody on there, just think of like, okay, if I was building a website, what are people going to ask me? And it doesn't necessarily need to be your prices. It's just like if you're a business consultant, do people ask you like, okay, what do you help me with? What's the output? What do I do? Finance, you can do this, social media. So I think a timeless strategy for yourself is if you post consistently and if you can think of things that your audience is going to ask, and that's always going to help you.
Yeah, I love that. So yeah, just always I mean, this kind of comes down to like and again, anybody that's listened to my my content in any way knows that I'm a big fan of follow-up in the sales world, where you're like
Yes.
you're touching base with somebody but I think the critical thing which I think you're speaking to here is following up with value, right? And a follow-up doesn't have to necessarily be like, "Oh, I called Alex again today to see if she wants to buy stuff." It's about like maybe emailing or putting stuff on social media or whatever, saying like, "Hey, this is like the questions I'm getting all the time," and putting that content out there for free. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. I mean, that's what you have to do. It doesn't,
Mm.
and I think people get scared of doing that because they're like, oh, well, if I'm giving it away for free, why is someone going to like want to hire me?
Yeah.
They're going to want to hire you because they still don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And they're
Yes.
also not becoming an expert because you answered a few of their questions on social media. Like you
Mm.
have to show somebody that you're valuable if you want them to pay you to
Yeah.
provide them value. So yeah, I mean, I think just taking those things that people are asking you already or even in conversation, I do that a lot. Like, and I'll probably do it from this podcast too. Like
Mm.
whenever I'm talking to somebody about social media or life and it makes a really good video topic, I'm like, I'm gonna make a video on that and share
Yeah.
that or post something about it because it's really great and it's really valuable. So yeah, I think if you're like you said, doing some email follow-ups, phone follow-ups, and something valuable comes out of that conversation, use that in your
Yeah.
content for sure.
Yeah. Just and share it out. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know. I feel like the world's kind of changed. I mean, obviously since social media stuff, like we all are very connected now, but like you have to really drive home your own value. And the way that you do that is by providing value for free. Because again, like you said,
Mhm.
like people aren't going to be an expert because I think at the end of the day, it can be easy to forget that where an individual's I think their big value can come from, like when you're selling things or whatever, is your experience. Because like, sure, like
Yes.
you can say like, oh, I understand what you're telling me, but until you actually go out and do it, like it's a 9-day difference, I think.
Oh, yeah, and it's also the time. Like,
Yes.
we don't have time to do every single thing every day, especially as a business owner, so
Mhm.
you may even I've worked with people that do understand social media, but they're like, "I just don't have time for this."
Yes.
So, like, it's a time saver, so if you're providing value in all those different ways, then, yeah, people are still gonna wanna work with you even if you're posting everything. I mean, I can go online and look up how to dye my own hair, and I'm still not going to do it. Like, I'd rather pay someone to do
Maybe
it.
not more than
So,
once.
yeah. So,
Yeah, so I totally agree with you, and I think, like, a personal philosophy that I have is I think most everything either costs time or money, and you just have to decide which one you wanna spend because, like, sure, you could go out and, like, learn all like, make all the mistakes and figure out all the stuff on social media marketing, but it makes much more sense to me to stay in my lane and do what I feel like I do best, and then come to somebody like you that really understands all the ins and outs much better than I probably ever will.
and I think that that's a really important entrepreneurial skill
Mm,
is knowing what you do best and
yeah,
outsourcing what you don't, because
yep,
you just have to be so like specific with your time and intentional with your time. Um, so I think if you can really just be honest with yourself, like I'm honest with myself in the sense of I suck at graphic design. I
mm,
suck at it. It is not my area of expertise. So if I need some good graphics, I'm just going to go get somebody to do it
yeah,
instead of
yep,
spending all this time trying to learn it. Like I have so many other valuable skills. I'm not going to lose out by outsourcing one thing.
yeah.
So,
But I think it's kind of been fun, like, on my, like, personal entrepreneurial journey where, like, I'm involved in a lot of different things that I know that I'm not the best at, but I do think there's something to be said for having some understanding of, like, say, you're not the best at graphic design, right? And you probably figured that out, I would guess, from doing graphic design, and it takes a while, and, like, I'm similar there too. Like, I figured out what I'm best at and what I'm not best at, and then I do my best to come to experts and outsource the rest as much as I possibly can.
yeah.
Um, One thing I was wondering, and again, I know you've got like a ton of experience here. So, what are some of like the biggest mistakes that people make, either like with
Yeah.
their brands or as entrepreneurs or just people in general on social media that are trying to drive some traffic to whatever it is that they're doing? Like, what are some of the big mistakes that people make most often, and how do we avoid them?
Yeah. So the first one we've talked about, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but it's trying to spread yourself too thin with
Yeah.
being on every platform. Don't do that. Um, Especially if you're a one-man show. But the other one, and I kind of giggled a little bit when you started asking
Yeah.
the question, because it's something that I think about all the time. I talk about it all the time with other social media professionals, and
Mm,
it's a very big problem, is companies in themselves do not understand the dynamic of social media marketing as it pertains to hiring people, that
yeah.
we're not just hiring one social media manager. Social media marketing is a team effort.
Hmm.
And it is such a mistake to hire a really talented person and put everything on them and burn them out, because they're
Yeah.
going to leave. They're going to leave, or their quality of work is going to turn just not good because they don't
Yeah.
have the time.
Yep.
So I think if you're whether you're a big company or you're a
Mm,
one-man show or however it is, I think having the awareness that you or one person is not going to be able to do it all, and that's
yeah.
fine. So don't try to do it all. Do what you
Yes.
can. And if you have somebody working for you in social media, try your best not to put every single thing on one person, or just
Mhm.
lower your expectations. And if you have the ability to hire a team, even if it's two people, even two people can make a difference.
Yeah.
Obviously, in an ideal world, it would be great to have, a 5-10 person social media marketing team or more, but that's not realistic for everybody. So, yeah, I think just not hiring properly is a huge mistake.
Mm,
And then also just trying to stretch yourself way too thin
yes.
on all the platforms.
I love that. Well, I got another question kind of as an offshoot to that. For like my
Yeah.
personal experience, and I don't know if this is crazy or not, but like what I do, because again, I'm kind of a solopreneur right now. I don't have like, I'm not Gary Vee. I don't have like 100 people sitting behind me all focused
Yeah.
on social media stuff. So what I have done is like I try my best to be consistent with content and putting stuff out there. I'm probably too across platforms as much as I should be, but what I try to do is like I try to make sure I'm keeping an eye on some of the numbers, like views and likes and those kind of things, and see what is doing well. And if I get kind of an uptick and this video got way more views than I typically get, then I try to double down on whatever it is I feel like resonated. Is that a good strategy
Yes.
for kind of the folks like myself that are doing it alone?
Yes, that's like what is, I mean, a number one social strategy,
Mm,
regardless of how big your team is. If something is working, repeat it.
yeah.
Why would you reinvent the wheel? And I mean, that's how people on these platforms go viral, because they figured out what their secret sauce is. They figured out the type of formula or content
Mm,
that people like, and they just keep doing it.
yep.
That's a whole other conversation that I like love getting into with people. It's just like, if you look at any of your favorite creators that are like really successful, there's probably a video that they have done or a form of content they've done that you've liked and you have specifically gone back for that same concept over and over and over again. So yeah, if you're seeing something that's working for you, keep doing it.
Yeah. And well, I feel like that's especially for the folks like myself, like I said, they don't have 100 people sitting behind them to
Yeah.
do all the social media stuff. But that's something that you can, even if you're posting, like you said, 2 or 3 times a week, it's a very manageable strategy, I think. Assuming you're being
Yes.
intentional with your time and not letting your calendar run away with you, I think it makes a lot of sense.
Even the
Okay.
engagement piece goes into that
Yeah.
too, because then you're
hmm
still getting people to come to your account and engage with you that can turn into leads, even if you're not able to post, like you said, a million things a day because you don't have enough time to do that. So
Yeah. Because I read Gary Vee came out with, I don't know if you saw it. You know who Gary Vee is?
yes,
Yeah. Did you see that he came out with a social media book like a while back? Like not pretty recently.
No, I didn't see it, but that's really cool that he did. Yeah.
He did, and like I've read it, and I mean it's got a lot of great information in there. But for again somebody like me, it's almost overwhelming because you have to have like all these people do all this stuff for you all the time, and you just don't have the resources or the time to do all of that.
No. Yeah, you have to be very realistic about what you're able to do. And I think a lot of people even are afraid. I've been there too, where I'm afraid to tell myself, like, I can't post 7 days a week on every platform. Like, I need to be able to do that. And it's like, you're still human with other responsibilities in life. And we get tired, we get drained, we get burnout, we have other things going on.
Yeah,
Like, there's more. It's worse to try to do that and fail and then get burnt out and not want to do it for 2 months than
yeah,
say, hey, I can post twice a week and this is working really great for me and I'm being able to be consistent. And now that it's growing, oh, maybe I have more money to be able to invest in hiring somebody, even part-time, to
yeah,
help me with social. But you're not going to get there if you're just burning yourself out. And
absolutely.
that's just,
Well, I was just gonna say, I think it kind of comes down to when we're talking about entrepreneurship and business, particularly in regards to some of the social media stuff. I feel like it comes down to understanding the difference between working in your business and working on your business, right? And you have to, I mean, as entrepreneurs and business people, we have to be able to make that differentiation where, I mean, social media can kind of fall into both buckets depending on what you're doing and why you're doing it. But you have to be able to differentiate between that in order to really, again, drive towards your ultimate goals.
right. Totally agree.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the social media stuff though. So if somebody was again just kind of starting out and trying to build their social media presence, what would be the first thing you would suggest? What piece of advice would you give them?
Yeah, so I would say try to post as much as you can, but not like, I don't mean turning out 5 pieces of content a day,
Mm,
posting different formats as well.
yeah,
Because let's be honest, posting, whether you're on camera or posting a graphic, it's very uncomfortable. It's very awkward. You feel a little weird when you're just like promoting yourself or your business or putting yourself out there for the first time. It's a very vulnerable thing to do.
yeah,
So I think when you just try to show up and post different ways, that is for everybody how you find like what you're comfortable with. And not only that, but again, like you said, you see your top performing content, you can repeat it. But if you've never done it before, like there's such a learning curve with like filming, and you may think like,
yeah,
oh, if I have this
yeah.
window and
Editing.
prop
Oh
my
my
phone
gosh.
up, I'm going to be great. And then you get in front of the camera and you're like, I don't know how to speak. I
Yeah.
can't do that. And
Yep.
so if you try to do a lot of different things, then you really find what you're comfortable with. And when you find what you're comfortable with and what you enjoy, then you get to stay consistent because you're not like, oh, this feels overwhelming because I hate doing these types of videos and stuff. And it's like, well, if you just try to do a bunch of different things, then you're going to find what works for you. And then that's going to help all of the rest of the pieces go forward. That and if you're looking to grow like a personal brand or something on
Mm,
social media, highly recommend following Tessa or Tess Barclay. She
okay.
is an amazing advice. She provides really great value for creators.
hmm
And I really like her approach on how you build your own
hmm
brand, your own story, building a brand. So if you're listening to this and you need somebody else, like some value, some perspective, I highly recommend doing that. I put her videos on. They're like 30 minutes on YouTube, and then she does short form on TikTok and Instagram. And I literally put her stuff on while I like am working. And you can get so much value out of like one
I
video.
love that.
So
What a
yeah,
great tip. I'll make sure to leave that in the show notes for anybody that
yes,
is interested
definitely.
in seeing what's going on there. Okay, but as we're wrapping up the show, Alex, this has been fantastic. But I want to know what's 25 looking like for you. What's kind of the big goals we got on the horizon?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm really working towards growing my own business
Mm,
right now. I've been doing freelancing since, gosh, 2021, and
man.
I've been trying to find like what my sweet spot is, what I really like to do and what services I like to offer, because I mean, we've talked before. I've tried a lot of different things with social
Yeah.
media, with content, with UGC, brand deals, all the things. So right now I'm really focusing on two main service offerings, which is
Mm,
social media management and event and wedding content creation.
okay.
And those two things have been kicking off really strong for 2025. They're still
Mm.
growing and it's been really, really great. So I'm really hoping to grow that to a point in the future, near future, hopefully, that
Yeah.
I can be doing that full time. And I've been really wanting to work for myself for a long time, but I just didn't feel ready for it. And I think now with all the years of freelancing plus a 9 to 5 agency job, several agency jobs actually, and corporate jobs,
Mhm.
so much networking that I finally feel like I'm in a position to be able to do that. So that's hopefully what's on the horizon for this year.
I love it. Well, that's so exciting. I mean, going full time, I mean, it's kind of scary, it's kind of intimidating, but it's I mean, for me, it's like crazy exciting too. Is that how you're feeling?
Yes, I'm feeling very excited. I obviously, like you said, there's some nerves that go with that because
Yep.
it's like, oh gosh, like this is, I feel like it's worked hot so much to stay in the cushy, safe
The W-2s,
nine to
yep.
five area. But, if I'm being honest with myself and what I want and want my life to look like, it would be with working for myself. And that's what I've been working so hard for so many years. So I'm really excited to do it. And I have the vision of what my life and schedule and work and stuff is going to look like. And I'm like very ready to just dive full into that.
So if anybody out there listening maybe needs some social media help or maybe
Yeah.
they, have some wedding content, I mean, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so best to get in touch with me on my Instagram or my
Mm,
TikTok.
okay.
My business pages are Sunrise Social. You'll have them linked below,
Yep.
so if they want to click on those. And then I also have my personal socials as well.
Mm,
And then in my Instagram bio, I have a little like inquiry form. So it's
okay.
real short, but you can fill that out and it'll just send me whatever you're interested in, and then we can chat, or you can direct message me on socials. And I have my email in all my bios too. So any of
That's
those links.
fantastic. Yeah, so I'll make sure to leave all those links in the show notes so people can find you just as easily as they can. But Alex, thank you so much. This has been just a gold mine of great social media content information. Thank you so much for coming on
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, well, and anybody else out there listening, make sure to hit that like and follow button because we have great guests coming on here all the time with incredible stories and incredible information just for you. So make sure to follow along. Don't want to miss a single one. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.